This is War of the Suns, which is the Chinese War of Resistance, 1937 to 1945. We are going to do just another rules video. We'll be looking at weather or environmental events. I prefer to call them environmental events because they're not strictly just weather. Now, a lot of this is driven by the gain turn track. And the gain turns are like seasonal, so each turn can have some of these special events, and they're marked off in different colour bands. So if we go down here, if it's orange, in the summer you get typhoon, flood, green veil. Autumn you can gain income from opium. Snow in the winter, and spring, I'm not sure exactly what spring does, but it sort of causes, could be floods, I would say. Okay, now that, just bear with me while I move around the table. Right, that corresponds with this mini map here. And the mini map gives you all the areas on the board. These are like provinces. And it gives you what they can be subject to. Alright? Now, what you're supposed to do is take your weather markers and stick them on there, but I won't be doing that. What I normally do, because I never remember otherwise, is I put my own little markers on the board. Like for this turn 0, there are a couple of floods. The thing about floods, they only affect the areas where you've got this light blue, teal type colour. So just mark the 2 areas which are prone to flooding. Flooding's main impact is it slows down movement, it affects command, and it affects supply in the fact that you can project command and supply into flooded hexes but not through them. So there's a few little bits and bobs like that. The other types we've got are typhoon. Now, these ones here, like typhoon, you can be a standard typhoon or you can be severe typhoon. You've got snow, you can be standard snow, severe snow. Flooding, you can be normal floods and severe floods. Now, what you do is you cross-reference this chart. So if you're looking at Southern Shanxi, which is 7, corresponds to this box here. And you can see that's affected by green veil and snow. You then throw on this chart, dice on this chart like this. So it's, I think, yeah, you're actually throwing 1d6 and 1d6. I think you throw 2d6. And you're looking at these numbers, combinations, to see what happens. And then if you throw, then you roll again to see if it's a severe event. Okay, now stuff that you can have is also a bit more, it's a bit more complicated than you might say. Let's have a look at, so events are actually done in the event phase, which is the pre-operations phase of every turn. So we've got a 7-2 weather events, or what I call environmental events. I'm not going to tell you exactly how the impact of snow, severe snow, typhoon, severe typhoon. What they call, you've got monsoon as well. Yeah, but that's particular to Indochina by the look of it. You've got yeah, flood and severe flood, as I mentioned, but there are other things here. Now, there is one major environmental event, which was the biggest environmental event ever to affect warfare in the history of war, but it's not that well known, is the Chinese can actually blow the Yellow River dams. By occupying here, they've got units in there and they can do a demolition job on those dams. What happens is it changes the direction of the river completely. So what happens is this new map, you see this, a new map comes into being, and then the rivers are running at a totally different course. They've got different flood zones and everything. This was a catastrophic event. It killed tens of thousands of Japanese soldiers, and it killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. They reckon at least 300,000 civilians were killed in the floods. So that's a pretty amazing thing, that you've got a whole new map that you have to put in place after the dams are blown. Other events, you've got green veil. Now the green veil is a certain type of crop that's grown in China, which is very, very tall. And in a certain period, it becomes so tall you can't, it's just a complete obstacle to vision. And if you're trying to hunt gorillas, they've got an advantage. If this situation is green veil, they're very difficult to find. You can have special environmental events like droughts and locusts. You can have disease, special events. We've already discussed opium. That's one, like there is some opium on the board here at the moment. It just gives you more income, basically. I think that pretty much covers how it all hangs together. It's very comprehensive. So it's just another thing to remember if you're fighting in China. Not only is the infrastructure very poor, you've got poor road and rail communications, which admittedly you can actually extend those using resource points. You're also at the mercy of the climate for a lot of the time, particularly obviously snow and stuff like that in the mountains to the east, and typhoons, monsoons, depending on where you are on land in China or Indochina. And there you go.